Most people walk through grocery stores on autopilot, grabbing cereal, comparing prices, never imagining danger could be hiding in the next aisle. Kids especially keep close to the adults they trust, or the adults they think they can trust. But this little girl didn't stay close. She lifted her hand in a quiet, desperate signal, a signal only someone who truly pays attention would recognize. And Jason Statham saw it. One look at her face, and he knew she wasn't trying to wave. She was trying to escape. Before we continue, thank you so much for being here and supporting these stories. It truly means more than you know. If you enjoy emotional, suspenseful narratives where quiet heroes step in at the right moment and where small signals carry big meaning, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life. All right, let's get back to it. Grocery stores are one of the few places where everyone pretends life is normal. Families argue over brands of cereal, couples debate which pasta to buy, kids spin on the carts until someone tells them to stop. Under the bright white lights and soft music, everything looks harmless. Jason Statham pushed his cart slowly down the breakfast aisle, a short list crumpled in his hand. Oats, coffee, bottled water, something to cook for his godson that was just eggs again, Uncle Jay. He promised his friend he'd stop by later, cook a proper dinner, and maybe try to be less of a stranger in his own life for once. He wasn't really paying attention to anyone else at first. He scanned labels, compared prices out of habit even when it didn't matter, and reached for a box on the top shelf. Then he heard it. Not a scream. Not a crash. Just a small, sharp intake of breath, the kind a kid makes when they're trying very hard not to cry. Jason's fingers paused on the box. His eyes flicked sideways, just casually at first, then with more focus. Halfway down the aisle, a little girl stood beside a tall man with a tattoo spiraling up his forearm. The man's hand wrapped around her wrist, not gently, not like a parent guiding a child, more like someone keeping hold of something they were afraid to lose. The girl couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Brown hair pulled into a crooked ponytail, the kind kids get when no one has time to fix it. A pink long-sleeved shirt, a bit too thin for the air conditioning. Her eyes were what caught Jason's attention, wide, dark, and too serious for someone that small. The man was talking, his voice low but harsh. "I told you don't wander off," he snapped. "You stay right next to me, you understand?" The girl nodded quickly. "Why, yes." The man tightened his grip once more, then turned his attention back to the shelves. "You're making this take longer. Keep quiet." Jason watched for a second longer, then forced himself to look away. Parents got frustrated. Kids wandered. Not every tense moment was danger. He knew better than anyone that jumping into every situation with suspicion could cause more harm than good. He pushed his cart forward. But then he noticed something else. The girl wasn't looking at the man. She was looking at him. Their eyes met for the briefest second. He saw it then, behind the quiet, behind the stillness. Panic. Not the obvious, screaming kind. The kind that sits behind someone's pupils and shakes them from the inside. Jason's steps slowed. His cart rolled a little ahead of him. The man took a box off the shelf, inspected it, then dropped it into his basket. "Come on," he muttered, tugging the girl's wrist. She stumbled forward. Jason's hand tightened on the cart handle. He almost turned away again. Almost. But as she was pulled past him, the girl did something very small and very deliberate. She lifted her free hand up, fingers straight together, palm facing outward, then tucked her thumb across her palm and curled her fingers down over it. One smooth, practiced motion. Jason's breath caught for half a heartbeat. He'd seen that gesture before. Not in a movie, not on the street. In a training video. A silent signal, born online, picked up by schools, shelters, advocacy groups. A hand sign kids and adults could use to say one word without speaking. "Help." She held the gesture for barely 2 seconds, then dropped her hand back to her side as the man tugged her along. Jason's mind sharpened instantly. If it had been a random wave, he'd have dismissed it. If it had been a child playing, raising a hand for attention, he'd have smiled and moved on. But that signal wasn't playful, it wasn't clumsy. It was precise. He left his cart where it was. He turned and followed. He didn't rush, didn't run. He walked at the lazy pace of someone who suddenly remembered they forgot something in the next aisle. His face stayed neutral, but his senses woke up fully, every sound, every movement. The man didn't look back. He dragged the cart with one hand and the girl with the other, turning down the snacks aisle. Jason followed far enough behind that it didn't look obvious, close enough to intervene if something escalated. "Can I use the bathroom?" the girl asked quietly. "No," the man answered without looking at her. "But—" I said no, his tone sharpened. "We're leaving, you don't need anything." Jason's eyes narrowed. He watched the man lean in close, his hand dropping from her wrist to clamp around her small fingers. "You open your mouth in front of anybody," the man muttered, "and I swear you'll regret it. You understand?" The girl nodded, her shoulders shrinking. Jason stepped closer, still pretending to read a bag of chips. He caught the man's reflection in the mirrored metal of the opposite shelf. The guy looked around 30, strong, nervous in a way that didn't fit the setting. His eyes darted not at products but at people. He wasn't shopping. He was waiting. Jason walked past the end of the aisle and turned the corner, moving toward the store's customer service desk. A line of people waited with returns and questions. A young employee in a blue vest scanned barcodes with a bored expression. Jason approached, speaking low, "Excuse me." The employee looked up, then blinked in surprise when he saw who was standing there. Hi, can I help you?" "I need you to call your manager," Jason said quietly. "Right now and discreetly." The kid swallowed. Is something wrong?" "There might be," Jason answered, "and it involves a child." The kid's eyes widened. He didn't ask more. He stepped away from the register and spoke into a small headset, voice trembling. Jason turned just enough to keep the snacks aisle in view. The man and the little girl appeared a moment later, walking toward the front of the store. "Sir," a woman's voice said behind him. Jason turned to see a manager approaching. Mid-40s, efficient eyes, name tag that read Karen in black letters. "What's going on?" she asked. Jason didn't waste time. "There's a man leaving the store with a little girl who gave me a recognized distress signal. I don't know the nature of their relationship, but I'm not comfortable letting them walk out without asking some questions." The manager frowned, glancing toward the front. "Which man?" Jason gestured subtly. Leather bracelet, tattooed arm, girl in a pink shirt. Karen's gaze focused, her jaw tightened a little. "I see them." "Do you have security?" Jason asked. "2 guards in the back," she said. "But we can't exactly accuse someone of kidnapping in the middle of the store without proof." "I'm not asking you to accuse anyone," Jason said calmly. "Just stall them, ask to check their receipt, ask about the girl, I'll watch their reaction." Karen hesitated. "I don't want to scare the child." "You won't," Jason replied. "If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and leave, but if I'm not." She nodded, understanding. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll approach them, stay close." Jason moved away from the desk, blending into the small crowd near the self-checkout. He picked up a basket, pretending to inspect the scanners, but his eyes never left the pair heading toward the automatic doors. "Excuse me, sir," the manager called, walking quickly toward them. The man stiffened. Jason saw it. Not a normal, casual pause, a full-body tightening, his shoulders locked, his grip on the girl's hand tightened enough to make her flinch. "Yes?" he asked, forcing a smile. "Sorry to bother you," Karen said in that customer service voice employees practiced everywhere. "We're doing random receipt checks today. Do you mind if I take a quick look before you go?" The man's jaw twitched. "Receipt," he repeated. "Yes," she said, holding out her hand. "It'll only take a second." He shifted the basket from one hand to the other, fumbling through his pockets. I think I left it at the register." "We can pull it up in the system," she said smoothly. "Which register did you use?" He hesitated, just 1 second too long. I paid cash," he said. "That's fine," she replied. "We can still check. Which lane were you at?" Jason stepped closer, pretending to be a customer on his way out. People's attention started to flicker toward the conversation. A couple in line watched quietly. A teenager with headphones pulled one earbud out. The man's eyes darted around. "I'm in a hurry," he said, the smile dropping from his voice. "We're late. My kid needs to use the bathroom. You can't keep us here." "Of course," Corinne said, still calm. "It'll just take a second. For loss prevention, you know, we have policies we have to follow." "I said we're leaving," the man snapped. "Move." The girl's eyes locked on Jason again. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just lifted her free hand and made the signal again, thumb across her palm, fingers folding over it. "Help." Jason stepped forward. "Everything all right here?" he asked, voice level, casual but carrying a weight beneath it. The man turned, annoyance flashing into something sharper. "We're fine," he said. "Mind your own business." Jason ignored him. He crouched slightly until he was eye level with the girl. "Hey," he said gently, "you okay?" She hesitated. Her lips parted. Then she whispered one word, so quiet he almost didn't hear it. "No." Jason stood slowly, placing himself just slightly between her and the automatic doors. The man's eyes hardened. "Touch my kid and we'll have a problem." "I haven't touched anyone," Jason replied softly. "I just heard her say she isn't okay." "She's shy," the man snapped. "You're scaring her." Jason kept his gaze steady. "Am I?" The girl shrank closer to the man's side, not out of comfort but out of fear. Corinne spoke up again, voice firm now. "Sir, until we verify that everything is all right, I'm asking you to stay inside." "You can't do that," he snarled. "What are you, police?" "No," she said, "but I can call them." The man's grip tightened. His eyes flicked to the doors, to Jason, to the manager, to the people now watching. He was calculating. Jason recognized the look. Fight or flee. The man dropped the basket suddenly. A box of cereal and a bag of chips tumbled to the floor. "Forget it," he muttered. "We're leaving." He yanked the girl's arm and tried to push past Jason. Jason moved without raising his voice, without making a scene. He took a single step sideways, body shifting just enough to block most of the doorway. His hands remained loose at his sides. "Let go of her hand," Jason said quietly. The man sneered. "You don't give me orders." "She signaled for help," Jason replied, calm but firm. "Twice, in front of witnesses. If you're her father and this is a misunderstanding, we can clear it up in 5 minutes. If you're not." He let the sentence hang. The man's eyes flashed. "You calling me a kidnapper?" Jason didn't blink. "What would you call a grown man who drags a child who's asking for help out of a public place?" A small circle had formed now. People held their breath. A security guard jogged toward them from the back of the store, hand already on his radio. "Sir," the guard said, "I'm going to ask you to step away from the girl." The man shifted his weight, looking around for an escape route. He found none. Jason took another step closer, calm, controlled, but undeniably present. "Last time," Jason said softly, "let her go." For a split second, something in the man's eyes changed. Not guilt. Desperation. He shoved the girl's hand away so suddenly she stumbled backward. Jason's arm shot out, steadying her. "Fine," the man said. "You want her, take her, I'm done." He turned as if to storm out. Jason's instinct screamed. No parent walks away like that. "Stop," Jason said sharply. The man didn't. He pushed through the crowd, headed for the exit, his steps too fast, too wild. "Lock the doors," Corinne shouted to the nearest employee. The automatic doors slid shut with a mechanical sigh just as the man reached them. He slammed his palms against the glass. "This is illegal," he shouted. "You're trapping me." The security guard spoke into his radio. "Call the police, now." The man turned, chest heaving, eyes wild. "This is a mistake," he yelled. "You all think you're heroes. You have no idea what you're doing." Jason placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, keeping her behind him. She pressed into his side, small body trembling. "What's your name?" Jason asked the man calmly. "No," he snapped, "you don't get my name." Jason's gaze hardened. "You know what I think," he said quietly. "I think we've already seen enough." The man's nostrils flared. For one tense second, Jason thought he might rush him, might try something stupid, something that would end badly for everyone. But then the man's eyes darted toward the back of the store again, toward the emergency exit. And Jason realized he wasn't done trying to run. The guard stepped closer. "Sir, stay where you are." The man ignored him. He bolted down the nearest aisle, shoving past a stack of canned goods and nearly knocking over an old woman's cart. The store erupted. People gasped. Someone screamed. The girl gripped Jason's sleeve. "Don't go," she whispered, voice shaking. Jason looked down at her. "I'm not leaving you." He glanced at the guard. "Stay with her," he ordered quietly. "Don't let anyone else near her until the police arrive. Not staff, not anyone." The guard nodded, suddenly aware this wasn't just a shoplifting situation. Jason squeezed the girl's shoulder once. "I'll be right back," he said. Then he ran. He didn't sprint wildly. He moved with purpose, cutting through the aisles, listening for the sound of hurried footsteps, the rattle of products knocked off shelves. He heard it near the dairy section. A crash. A curse. Jason turned the corner and saw him, shoving through a side door labeled "Employees Only." Jason followed, heart steady, breaths controlled. The back hallway was narrow, lined with stacked crates and metal racks. He caught up just as the man shoved open the emergency exit at the end, an alarm screaming to life. Cold air rushed in. The man burst into the loading area, feet pounding the concrete, eyes fixed on the chain-link fence at the edge of the lot. Jason stepped through the door after him, the alarm howling overhead. "Don't do this," Jason called out, voice cutting through the noise. The man didn't look back. He jumped for the fence, grabbed it, started to climb. Jason had a choice. Let him go and hope the police caught him later. Or stop him now, before whatever story led him here could repeat somewhere else, with another child whose hand signal might not be seen. Jason moved. He didn't shout again. He just reached up, grabbed the man's ankle and yanked. The man lost his grip. He hit the ground hard, a cry of pain ripping from his throat. Jason stepped back, giving him room but blocking the path. "Stay down," Jason said quietly. The man rolled onto his back, clutching his wrist, his face twisted between pain and rage. "You don't understand," he gasped. "You have no idea what's really going on." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Then start talking," he said, "because the police are on their way." The man stared up at him, breathing hard, trapped between the concrete and Jason's unwavering gaze. And for the first time since this started, Jason saw something new in his eyes. Not just fear. Something almost like regret. Whatever truth was hiding behind that man's panic was about to surface. But that would come later. For now, the only thing that mattered was this. A little girl had raised her hand in a crowded grocery store, silently asking for help. And someone had finally answered. What Jason didn't know yet, what none of them knew, was that the story behind that hand signal wasn't simple. And when the truth came out, it would shock everyone in ways they weren't prepared for. Jason didn't move at first. He just stood there over the man sprawled on the concrete, chest heaving, dust sticking to the sweat along his jaw. The cold air from the open emergency exit washed over them, mixing with the wailing alarm still shrieking above the door. Somewhere inside the store, people whispered, workers shouted instructions, and footsteps echoed as employees locked down the entrance. But out here, behind the building, tucked between loading docks and tall chain-link fences, the world felt still, frozen at the exact moment. Jason pulled the man off the fence and dropped him flat. The man groaned, half from pain, half from the realization that he wasn't getting away. He rolled onto his side, clutching his wrist, eyes darting to the alley, the dumpsters, the fence he'd almost climbed. Jason took one slow step closer, not looming, not threatening, just present. "You don't want to run again," Jason said, voice low but controlled. "Trust me." The man spat a tired curse under his breath. "You don't know anything," he snapped. "This isn't what you think." Jason's jaw flexed once, then explain it. The man's mouth opened, but the words stuck somewhere between his frustration and his fear. He wasn't just panicking anymore. He was worn down, exhausted, scared in a way that didn't fit neatly into the category of guilty. Still, there was a girl inside who had silently begged for help. Jason wasn't letting him move until he understood exactly what she'd been running from. "What's your name?" Jason asked. "No," the man said, shaking his head. "I'm not telling you anything. You'll twist it. Everyone will twist it." "This isn't a debate," Jason said. "The police will be here any minute. You can tell me now or you can tell them later." The man flinched at the word police. His breathing quickened again. His fear didn't match the fear of a typical predator. It was fear of something else. Something darker. "Look," Jason said, keeping his tone steady, "you tried to run with a child who asked for help, twice. You dragged her through the store. You ignored her when she said she was scared. And you abandoned her the second I stepped in. None of that looks good." The man shook his head violently. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't hear myself?" He let out a bitter laugh that nearly cracked. "If I explain, you won't believe me." Jason crouched down to his level, hands resting loosely on his knees, face calm but unyielding. "Try me." The man swallowed, hesitated, then exhaled slowly like a dam finally cracking. "She's not mine," he said. Jason didn't react. "I figured." "You think I kidnapped her," the man said, defeated. "You ran." "I had to," he snapped. "They were watching. They always watch." Jason studied him carefully. Anything could be a lie. Panic made liars out of people even when they spoke the truth. But something in the man's voice, the jagged desperation, didn't feel like the typical lies predators told. "Who is they?" Jason asked. The man opened his mouth. But the emergency exit behind them slammed open, and the security guard from earlier rushed out, followed closely by 2 store employees. "Sir," the guard yelled, "step away from him." Jason didn't move far, but he rose slowly to his feet, lifting his hands just enough to show he wasn't holding anything. "It's all right," he said evenly. "He's staying down." The man on the ground groaned. "Oh good, more people who don't know anything," he muttered. The guard kept his radio pressed to his shoulder. "Police are 3 minutes out." Jason nodded. Good. The sooner they arrived, the safer the girl would be. But he also knew that once police stepped in, stories became harder to untangle. And if this man clammed up or panicked again or shut down entirely, the truth might drown under assumptions. "Where's the girl?" the guard asked. "Inside," Jason said. "Manager has her. She's safe." A tiny weight in the back of his chest eased at the word safe, but not fully. Not until he understood why she needed saving in the first place. The guard approached the man on the ground, hands where I can see them. The man lifted his hands reluctantly, still clutching his wrist. "I didn't hurt her," he muttered. "I never hurt her." "That's not what it looked like," the guard shot back. Jason raised a hand. "Let him speak." The guard hesitated, but Jason's tone left little room for argument. The man took a shaky breath. I wasn't grabbing her because I wanted to. I was grabbing her because she was trying to signal other people. She's been doing it all week, and I can't let them think." He cut himself off abruptly. Jason's eyes sharpened. "Let who think what?" But before the man could answer, 2 police cruisers screeched into the loading zone behind the store. Their doors swung open, lights flashing across the brick wall. "Everyone step back," one officer called out, hand already hovering near his holster. Jason lifted both hands slightly, taking 1 step back, letting the officers move in. They rushed toward the man, who flinched and curled up slightly, as if expecting violence. He didn't fight. He didn't argue. He just crumbled. They cuffed him quickly, one officer securing his hands, the other patting him down. He looked defeated, a man who'd run out of choices long before he ran into Jason. The officer nearest Jason eyed him. "You the one who detained him?" Jason nodded once. "He tried to flee. I stopped him." "That was you," the officer said, eyebrows lifting. "We saw the alarm trip." Jason shrugged. Door was open. He chose the wrong one. The officer almost smirked. "Almost. You hurt?" "No." "Is he?" "A bruised wrist, maybe a bruised ego." The officer nodded. "All right, we'll question him. Can you walk us through what happened?" "I will," Jason said. "But first, I want to check on the girl." The officer's expression softened slightly. She's inside. With the store manager. All right, let's go. Jason followed the officers back through the emergency exit, the alarm finally silenced by a manager using a key card. As he stepped back into the bright lights of the store, Jason felt tension coil back inside him. The girl wasn't where he left her. She was sitting near the customer service counter, knees drawn up to her chest, hugging a small stuffed bear someone must have given her. Two employees stood nearby to block the view from curious shoppers. The security guard from earlier hovered protectively behind her. But the girl didn't look relieved. She looked terrified. Jason approached gently, lowering himself into a crouch a few feet away. "Hey," he said softly, "it's me." She lifted her head slowly, her eyes red from crying. She looked at him, then immediately reached both hands out, not the signal this time, just the instinctive reaching of a child who finally saw the only person she trusted. Jason sat beside her and let her lean into him. She grabbed his sleeve again, burying her face against it. "You did good," he said quietly. "You're safe now." Her voice came out small and broken. He wasn't supposed to take me." Jason glanced at the officers. They stepped closer. "Sweetie," one officer said kindly, "can you tell us who he is? Is he your dad?" She shook her head quickly. "Uncle? No. Family friend? No." Jason felt her trembling intensify. He spoke gently, "Then who is he?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "He works for them." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Them who?" She swallowed hard. "The people in our house." A cold quiet filled the air around them. The officer frowned. "Your parents?" She shook her head. "No, the other people. The ones my mom says to never talk about. The ones who come at night." Jason and the officer exchanged a look. "What people?" Jason asked softly. "My mom calls them her visitors. She says if I see them, I have to hide, and if they talk to me, I have to pretend I don't hear them." Jason felt a slow chill creep across his shoulders. "Did they talk to you?" She trembled harder. "They told me to go with him." Jason froze. The officer stepped closer. "What do these visitors look like? Are they friends of your mom? Do they have names?" The girl shook her head violently. "No, they're not her friends. My mom cries after they leave. She locked me in the closet once when she heard them coming. She said it was the only safe place." The officer knelt, keeping his voice soft. "Honey, are you saying your mom is being threatened by people who enter your home?" The girl nodded. "And who told you to go with the man today?" She whispered, "The woman with the red gloves." Jason felt his breath still. "Red gloves?" The girl nodded again, desperate now. "She's the one who tells my mom what to do. She said if I didn't go with him, something bad would happen. But he was supposed to take me to her, not the store, not anywhere else. He said we had to hurry because she was watching us. She always watches." The officer swallowed hard. "Do you know her name?" "No, but she always wears red gloves, even inside, even when it's hot." Jason felt the story shift in a way he hadn't expected. This wasn't a simple kidnapping. This wasn't even a custody issue. This was something deeper. Something organized. Something deliberate. The man hadn't been trying to flee from guilt. He'd been trying to flee from someone else. Jason exhaled slowly. "Do you know where this woman is now?" The girl hesitated. Then she whispered the words that would shift the atmosphere entirely. "She was in the parking lot earlier." Jason's heart dropped. "And she said," the girl's voice cracked, "she said if I didn't go with him, she'd come get me herself." The officers exchanged looks full of dread. Jason stood slowly, eyes shifting toward the front windows of the store, scanning the parking lot, the shadows between cars, the cars pulling in and out. The sun was lower now. The lot darker. Anyone could be out there. Anyone. The officer spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, we need units around the parking lot. Possible second suspect. Female, distinguishing detail, red gloves." Jason's jaw tightened. The girl tugged on his sleeve again. "Jason," she said, "she follows me everywhere." He knelt and looked her in the eyes. "Not anymore," he said, voice low and certain. The officer turned to Jason. "Sir, we'll need you to stay inside until we clear the area." Jason nodded once, but his eyes never left the glass doors. Someone out there had threatened a child. Someone who knew enough to send a man to retrieve her. Someone who wasn't afraid to follow her into public places. Someone wearing red gloves. Jason didn't know who she was yet, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. A woman like that wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And when she came looking, she'd find someone waiting for her. Someone she wasn't expecting. Someone she should have been afraid of the moment she stepped into that child's life. Jason Statham,